Tonight, a drowning tragedy shakes a small southern community. Record enrolments at Otago University. And we venture into the high country to meet cartoonist Garrick Tremain. Good evening. After a night of tragedy, the tiny southern community of Collic Bay today mourns its dead, the 3 men who died last night in a boating accident just off the coast. Kathy Graham reports.
Today the sea was flat, the rollers only hinting at the danger of the strait, which had already claimed the lives of 7 fishermen in the past 3 years. This is where Robin Pollard, Ian Cleaver and Walter Roderick drowned last night, bringing the grim total to 10.
The 4 of them went out in the boat, went to a mussel bed round the corner here, and Mr. Wahaki swam into where the mussel bed was, and he was diving, came up and found the boat had disappeared.
He thought they were waiting for him, did he?
Yes, yeah. He came back, spoke to some people on the shore around there. They indicated the boat had gone out, so he came back here to the boat ramp behind me, just down the corner here, and ascertained that they hadn't returned. And then these people that he had met further around the beach came back with an oar from the dinghy. We had a camper van just here, and he had a CB set on board, by which he raised the alarm, and they contacted the Invercargill police, who in turn contacted me.
What state was he in?
A shock state.
When the Riverton lifeboat got the call, the crew were all here at practice. It took just 20 minutes to launch the boat at Collic Bay, but already 1 body had washed up on the shore. The second was found soon after. It's understood none of the men was wearing a life jacket.
The third one that we got, he was unconscious, and we couldn't pick up any breathing, but we gave it our best shot and just tried resuscitation in case.
The hospital confirmed Walter Roderick was dead on arrival. The only survivor, Tama Waihaka, who lives here, spent the day with the families of his friends who died. On Thursday, Collic Bay will bury its dead.
Secondary school teachers around the south turned out in their hundreds today to stop work meetings to discuss proposals put out by the State Services Commission in their award round. In Dunedin, the region's biggest meeting, more than 400 teachers showed their strong opposition to the proposals, according to the Otago Regional Chair Roger Tobin. The action they'll take will be coordinated by the National Executive. But the mood of this meeting was that teachers believe accepting the proposals would mean education in the classroom will suffer. If you've noticed an influx of new faces in Dunedin lately, it's because the students are back in town. And at Otago University this year, there are more new faces than ever before. Sally Pears spoke to the university's Vice-Chancellor about the increasing role.
Over the past 4 years, Otago University's role has steadily increased, but this year will see it reach its highest yet. It's still at the pre-enrolment stage, but already there's been a 16% increase in student numbers. It's a trend common to universities throughout the country, with more and more students deciding to go on to further study. Even so, the increase here is an impressive one. Some students have even transferred from other universities because there aren't so many course restrictions at Otago. Accommodation is cheaper and closer to the varsity, and the lifestyle, they say, is more relaxed. But with the increase in numbers comes an increase in pressures.
It suffers in, of course, that we're now going to have a lot more students this year, and we haven't really got sufficient space, and it's going to be a very tough year for the teaching staff. So we suffer, but I guess to an extent we're prepared to suffer because we don't want to stop young people coming to university.
Although the pressures seem great, the university administration is already changing to accommodate the increasing numbers. They've applied for more money, but Vice-Chancellor Irvin can't guarantee it'll come through. If it doesn't, it will mean larger tutorials, difficulty in timetabling extra lectures, and a strain on staff to mark papers.
Dunedin police are still searching for missing Tauranga woman Gabrielle Stewart. 34-year-old Mrs. Stewart disappeared from Ashburn Hall at midday on Friday, and because of her distressed state and the weather conditions, police fear for her safety. 30 people are searching the area around the top of Tyrie Road, including Mrs. Stewart's husband. They'll continue until about 9 o'clock tonight. Police urge anyone who sees Mrs. Stewart to contact them immediately. The announcement of a deal between Television New Zealand and Sky Media will mean the introduction of pay television to New Zealand. That, along with plans for a third channel and community television, will change the face of broadcasting in this country. Lee Davies has been looking at what viewers in our region can expect to see in the near future.
The Sky Media deal will bring 3 new channels to the north. For a weekly fee of about $10, viewers will be able to watch sport, news and entertainment. But the Sky Media programmes won't be available in Otago and Southland until well into next year. There'll be more choice for viewers in the south when Television 3 comes on the air, but its Christchurch building programme is at a standstill and it's not planning to start broadcasting from Auckland until after July. And the development of community television in Dunedin's also at a standstill in the meantime. It's trying for regional development money for a feasibility study, and it seems unlikely it'll be on air this year. Some viewers in Dunedin, though, do have access to pay television of a sort. The Beach Hotel at St Kilda has its own dish and offers its patrons English soaps and lots of American football, basketball and news. For the rest of us in the regions, though, it looks like a choice between 1 and 2 for at least the next few months.
A new cartoonist has been making an impact with readers of the Otago Daily Times in recent months. But while most daily paper, social and political commentators base themselves in cities, Garrick Tremain fires his satirical salvos from a lofty retreat in the mountains near Queenstown. Alan Brady penetrated his hideaway to file this story.
From the splendid isolation of his home and studio in the shadow of the Remarkables, Garrick Tremain has established himself as one of the country's most successful landscape artists. And while geographical isolation is obviously no disadvantage in this field of art, a few years ago it would certainly have interfered with the ability of a newspaper cartoonist to comment topically on the issues of the day. Now the facsimile machine means drawings can be transmitted to Dunedin at the touch of a button. And modern communications also mean Garrick Tremain can observe social and political events just as closely from his hilltop home as he could from the city.
I rely entirely for the information on television, newspaper and radio, and I have the same access as people living in Dunedin, Christchurch or Auckland, I suppose. I think a fairly healthy dollop of cynicism is probably pretty important. You have to be able to cut through the crap and see it for what it is.
What's the trigger for a cartoon? Where do the ideas come from?
Sometimes they are based on anger. I get riled by something, not particularly very often. The ideas might come in the shower while I'm mowing the lawns. Occasionally I find that I want to do a cartoon on a particular subject, but an idea is not there. Then I have to sit down and work on it sometimes, and it does take some cranking of the wheels to get it coming. Fortunately, that doesn't happen a lot. I think naturally anything that I feel strongly about I wish to comment on, and I think probably readers of the ODT have noticed I've had rather a lot of cartoons on the frigate issue, for example. I feel strongly about that. Conservation issues I feel fairly strongly on, and it's much easier to comment on something that you feel about, obviously.
Cartoons can make the most biting political comment on the pages of any newspaper, but Garrick Tremain says he's given a completely free hand even when his views differ from the editorial line being taken by the ODT. The frigates issue is a case in point.
There are two things that a good political or topical cartoon can do. It can either be very amusing or it can make a statement. I think the best of cartoons do both. They're both amusing and they make a statement about some moral, religious, political issue, whatever. However, they must do one or the other. I try, I think, to make all my cartoons both, to make a definite statement in a humorous way.
It would be easy to steer away from issues such as racial conflict, but it's here Garrick Tremain has often been ruthlessly incisive.
I think race and religion are still the two areas that have to be handled with kid gloves. As long as what you're saying is true, I think people should be made to face it.
Garrick Tremain's mountain hideaway may seem remote from the issues he comments on, but he's no hermit. He owns racehorses, breeds ponies, plays the piano in local hotels, has been a local radio talkback host, and of course his art sells throughout Australia and New Zealand. But cartooning now has a special place in his busy life.
The thing that really appeals to me about the cartoon work, I think, for anybody who likes having a say, if you like making a comment, and I do, the average Joe Blow has limited options. He can go down and bore somebody in the pub, or he can get around in a sandwich board and look rather silly, or if he really wants to reach a lot of people, he can perhaps go and buy a little space in the classified page and say what he's got to say there, at vast expense perhaps. But if you're a cartoonist, not only do they give you the best page in the paper and a real good space and hold it for you every day, but they pay you as well, and that to me seems just unbelievably lucky.
Cartoonist Garrick Tremain with Alan Brady. Now, the temperatures on a day that saw a 10-degree spread right across the region. The low of 15 degrees was recorded today in Half Moon Bay. The high tomorrow for Invercargill is 18 degrees and for Dunedin 17. The high today in Alexandra 25.